Laura Mitchell stood in the narrow aisle of the Kroger on West End Avenue, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow on the pink and white box that felt heavier than it should. Outside, Nashville's October rain drummed against the windows, the kind of steady downpour that turned the city's brick streets into rivers and made the neon signs of Broadway blur into watercolor streaks. She was 28 years old, a compliance officer at a mid-sized insurance firm downtown, and until 3 minutes ago, she thought she had her life figured out. 2 years with Derek Chamberlain had been the most stable, loving relationship she'd ever known her, so she believed. It was 32, an account executive at a marketing agency in the Gulch, with the kind of easy charm that made strangers feel like old friends. Sandy hair, green eyes, a smile that crinkled at the corners. He'd told her he loved her after 6 months. They'd talked about moving in together, about a future that stretched out before them like the rolling hills of Tennessee. Laura paid for the test and walked out into the rain, her canvas jacket quickly soaking through. She'd parked her Honda Civic near Centennial Park, and as she drove home to her one-bedroom apartment in Sylvan Park, she tried to remember when her last period had been. Late September? Early October. The anxiety of the past few weeks had blurred everything together. Her apartment was a modest space on the second floor of a converted house, with hardwood floors that creaked and windows that looked out onto a street lined with oak trees. She dropped her purse on the kitchen counter and went straight to the bathroom, not even bothering to take off her wet jacket. 3 minutes later, she sat on the edge of her bathtub, staring at 2 pink lines. Pregnant? Her first instinct was joyous, sudden, overwhelming rush of it that made her chest feel too small for her heart. She and Derek had been careful, but not obsessively so. They'd talked about children in abstract terms, the way couples do when they're testing the waters of forever. She grabbed her phone, her fingers already composing the text, "We need to talk. Something important. Can you come over tonight?" His response came quickly. "Hey babe. Can't tonight, work thing running late. Tomorrow." Laura frowned. Derek had been distant the past 2 weeks, shorter texts, canceled plans, excuses about deadlines and client meetings. She'd chalked it up to stress, the kind that came with the competitive world of Nashville's growing marketing scene. But now, holding evidence of their shared future in her hands, his absence felt sharper. "Tomorrow works. My place, 7. Perfect. Love you." You. She set the phone down and looked around her small bathroom, the chipped tile, the shower curtain she'd been meaning to replace, the mirror that needed a good cleaning. This was where she'd just learned she was going to be a mother. The moment felt too big for such an ordinary space. That night, Laura couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the rain and imagining Derek's reaction. Would he be scared? Excited? They'd need a bigger place, maybe one of those new apartments going up in East Nashville, or a small house in one of the neighborhoods where young families were settling. She thought about baby names, about what her mother would say, about whether it would be a boy or a girl. The next evening, Laura cleaned her apartment with nervous energy. She lit a candle that smelled like vanilla and cinnamon, put on a soft gray sweater, and rehearsed different ways to tell him. By 6:30, her stomach was in knots. By 7:15, Derek still hadn't shown up. At 7:40, her phone buzzed. "So sorry. Something came up. Can we do this weekend instead?" Laura stared at the message, a cold feeling spreading through her chest. She called him. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She called again. Same result. "Derek, this is important. I really need to see you." She sat on her couch, the candle burning down, the smell of vanilla mixing with her growing dread. At 9 o'clock, she opened her laptop and did something she'd never done before. She searched for Derek on social media. They weren't connected on Facebook. He'd always said he kept his personal life private online, and she'd respected that. But now, as she typed his name into the search bar, she felt like she was crossing a line she couldn't uncross. Derek Chamberlain, Nashville. TN. His profile was semi-private, but she could see his profile picture, a recent photo of him in a suit, looking polished and professional. She scrolled down to see what was public. Not much, a few tagged photos from colleagues. Nothing suspicious. Then, she saw it. A tagged post from 2 days ago from someone named Jennifer Hart. The photo showed Derek in a tuxedo, standing next to a blonde woman in an elegant navy dress. They were at what looked like a formal event, his arm around her waist, both of them smiling at the camera. The caption read, "Engagement party sneak peek. 3 weeks until we say, I do. #Hartwell Chamberlain wedding." Laura's vision blurred. She read it again. And again. 3 weeks until we say, I do. She clicked on Jennifer's profile. It was public. Photos flooded the screen. Derek and Jennifer at restaurants, on vacation in Destin, at Predators games, holding hands on Broadway. Photos, dating back 3 years. 3 years. Laura's hands shook so violently she almost dropped the laptop. She scrolled frantically, looking for dates, for context, for anything that would make this make sense. There were engagement photos taken in September, professional shots at Cheekwood Estate, Jennifer's hand prominently displaying a diamond ring. There were posts about wedding planning, about choosing flowers and cake flavors and first dance songs. And there, mixed in with all of it, were the past 2 years of Laura's life. The nights Derek said he was working late, the weekends he was out of town for conferences, the holidays he spent with family while Laura waited at home. She ran to the bathroom and vomited. When she emerged, shaking and pale, she looked at her phone. Still no response from Derek. She called him again. Voicemail. She called 5 more times. Nothing. At 11 o'clock, she sent a single text. I know about Jennifer. Her phone rang 30 seconds later. Laura, listen. Derek's voice was tight, panicked. You're getting married. Her voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. It's complicated. I can explain. You're getting married in 3 weeks. Silence. I'm pregnant, Derek. The words came out flat, emotionless. I'm pregnant, and you're getting married to someone else in 3 weeks. She heard him take a sharp breath. You're what? Pregnant. With your child. More silence. Then, are you sure it's don't? Her voice cracked. Don't you dare! Laura, I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Jennifer and I have been together since college. Our families are close. The wedding has been planned for over a year. I thought maybe we could. You thought you could keep both of us? Have your perfect wedding and your secret girlfriend on the side? I care about you. Primera rea, get out of my life! Laura hung up and immediately blocked his number. She sat in the dark, her hand resting on her stomach, and realized she had never felt more alone. The next morning, Laura called in sick to work. She spent the day in bed, alternating between crying and staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed with calls from her mother, their weekly Sunday call, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. How could she explain this? Her mother, Patricia Mitchell, was a God-fearing woman who taught Sunday school at their family's Baptist church in Franklin. Laura's pregnancy out of wedlock would be scandal enough. The fact that the father was engaged to another woman would be unforgivable. By Monday, Laura forced herself to shower and go to work. She moved through the day like a ghost, filing paperwork and responding to emails on autopilot. Erkoige Marisa Chun, a 45-year-old divorced mother of 2, noticed immediately. You look terrible, Marissa said bluntly during their lunch break in the office kitchenette. Thanks, Laura muttered, pouring herself coffee she didn't want. I'm serious. What's wrong? Laura looked at Marissa's concerned face and felt something crack inside her. Can we talk somewhere private? They ended up in Marissa's car in the parking garage, where Laura told her everything. The words spilled out in a torrent. Derek, the pregnancy, the engagement, the lies. When she finished, Marissa sat quietly for a long moment. That son of a bitch, she finally said. What are you going to do? I don't know. Laura's voice was small. I don't know anything anymore. Are you keeping the baby? Laura's hand moved instinctively to her stomach. Yes, I am. Marissa nodded. Then you need to tell your family. And you need to decide if you're going to let him get away with this. Laura thought about Jennifer Hartwell's smiling face in those engagement photos. Did she know? Did she have any idea that her fiancé had been living a double life? She deserves to know, Laura whispered. Yes, Marissa agreed. She does. Chapter 2. Silence and shame. Laura sat in her car, outside her parents' house in Franklin, trying to gather the courage to walk through the front door. The two-story colonial sat on a quiet cul-de-sac, its white columns and black shutters gleaming in the November sun. She'd grown up in this house, spent 18 years within its walls before leaving for college at Middle Tennessee State University. The neighborhood still looked the same: perfectly manicured lawns, American flags on porches, SUVs in driveways. It was Sunday afternoon, the week after she'd discovered Derek's betrayal. She'd finally answered her mother's calls, agreeing to come for dinner. Now, sitting in the driveway, she felt like she might throw up again. Her father, Robert Mitchell, opened the door before she could knock. He was 62, a retired electrician with silver hair and the kind of strong, calloused hands that came from a lifetime of manual labor. He'd always been a man of few words, letting Patricia do most of the talking. "There's my girl," he said, pulling her into a hug that smelled like coffee and Old Spice. Inside, the house smelled like pot roast and fresh bread. Her mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a floral apron. Patricia was 58. Her dark hair now streaked with gray, she refused to dye. Her figure slightly rounder than it had been in Laura's childhood, but still elegant in her church clothes, a navy dress, and pearl earrings. "You're too thin," Patricia announced, studying Laura's face. "Are you eating enough?" "I'm fine, Mom." They settled around the dining room table, the same one where Laura had eaten thousands of meals, done homework, and had countless family conversations. Her younger brother, Michael, was absent. He'd moved to Atlanta 3 years ago for a job in software development and rarely made it back for Sunday dinners anymore. The meal began with Grace, her father's deep voice asking for blessings on the food and the family. Laura barely heard the words. She pushed pot roast around her plate, her stomach churning. "So," Patricia said brightly, "how's Derek? We haven't seen him in months. When are you two going to stop by together?" Laura's fork clattered against her plate. Her parents looked at her expectantly. "We broke up," she said quietly. Her mother's face fell. "Oh, honey. When? What happened?" "A couple weeks ago." "It's complicated." "Complicated how?" Her father's voice was gentle but probing. Laura took a deep breath. There was no way to say this that wouldn't devastate them. "I'm pregnant, and Derek is engaged to someone else. He's been with both of us for 2 years. I didn't know." The silence that followed was deafening. Her mother's face went through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, horror, and finally, something that looked like disgust. "You're pregnant?" Patricia repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Out of wedlock. With a man who betrayed you." "Mom, do you have any idea what this will do to our family's reputation? To our standing in the church?" Patricia stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "How could you be so careless? I didn't know he was lying to me." Laura's voice rose. "I thought we were building a future together." "Well, clearly you weren't paying attention to the red flags. A man who doesn't introduce you to his family after 2 years. Who keeps you separate from his life. That should have told you everything you needed to know." The accusation hit Laura like a physical blow. "So, this is my fault. I didn't say that." "Yes, you did. You're saying I should have known better." Her father cleared his throat. "Girls, let's calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down, Robert." Patricia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Our daughter is pregnant by a man who's marrying someone else. Do you understand what people will say? What they'll think? Laura will be labeled a homewrecker, a mistress. I didn't know." Laura was crying now, hot, angry tears that blurred her vision. "I loved him. I thought he loved me." "Love?" Patricia scoffed. "Love doesn't happen outside of marriage, Laura. That's lust. And now you're dealing with the consequences." Laura stood, her whole body shaking. "I came here because I needed my family. I needed support. But I see now that was a mistake." "Where are you going?" her father asked, standing as well. "Home. I can't do this right now." "Laura Michelle Mitchell, sit down." Her mother's voice had the same commanding tone she'd used when Laura was a child caught breaking rules. No. Laura grabbed her purse. I won't sit here and be judged by you. I won't listen to you tell me that this is my fault when I'm the victim here. You're not a victim, Patricia said coldly. You're an adult who made poor choices. And now you have to live with them. Laura walked out, slamming the door behind her. She made it to her car before the sobs overtook her completely. That night, curled up on her couch, Laura made a decision. Jennifer Hartwell deserved to know the truth, and Derek deserved to face consequences for what he'd done. She spent the next week doing research. Through social media, she learned that Jennifer worked as a pediatric nurse at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. She was 29, from a prominent Nashville family. Her father owned a chain of car dealerships across Tennessee. The wedding was set for November 22nd at the First Presbyterian Church on Oak Street, with a reception at the Belmead Country Club. Laura also learned that Derek had lied to Jennifer the same way he'd lied to her. According to Jennifer's posts, they'd been together exclusively since their junior year at Vanderbilt University. She had no idea about Laura's existence. On a cold Wednesday afternoon, Laura drove to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital. She'd called ahead, confirming that Jennifer worked the day shift that week. Now, sitting in the parking garage, she felt her resolve wavering. What if Jennifer didn't believe her? What if she blamed Laura instead of Derek? But then she thought about those engagement photos, about Jennifer's genuine smile, about how she deserved to know the truth before legally binding herself to a liar. Laura walked into the hospital, the smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner making her nauseous. At the information desk, she asked to speak with Jennifer Hartwell. Are you family? The receptionist asked. No. It's personal. Can you tell her Laura Mitchell is here to see her? 10 minutes later, Jennifer appeared in the lobby. She was tall and willowy, with honey blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, and blue scrubs that made her eyes look even bluer. She looked confused but polite. Hi, I'm Jennifer. Do we know each other? Laura's throat felt tight. No. But we have something in common. Can we talk somewhere private? They ended up in a small consultation room off the main hallway. Jennifer sat across from Laura, her confusion deepening. I'm sorry to ambush you like this, Laura began. But there's something you need to know before your wedding. It's about Derek. Jennifer's expression shifted to concern. Is he okay? Did something happen? He's fine. Physically. Laura took a breath. For the past 2 years, Derek and I have been in a relationship. I didn't know about you until a few weeks ago. I'm pregnant with his child. The color drained from Jennifer's face. That's not possible. Derek and I have been together for 7 years. We live together. We're getting married in 2 weeks. Laura pulled out her phone and showed Jennifer the evidence: text messages, photos of her and Derek together, receipts from restaurants and trips, everything she'd saved over 2 years. Jennifer's hands trembled as she scrolled through the proof. This can't be real, Jennifer whispered. This can't be happening. I'm sorry, Laura said, and she meant it. I'm so sorry. I didn't know about you. If I had, I never would have get out. Jennifer's voice was ice. Jennifer, get out, now. Jennifer stood, her face flushed with rage and humiliation. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Derek would never do this. We've been together since college. Our families have known each other for decades. This is some kind of sick joke. I have medical records, Laura said quietly. Proof of pregnancy. DNA tests can be done after the baby is born. I'm not lying to you. Jennifer stared at her, tears streaming down her face. Why are you doing this to me? Because you deserve to know the truth. Because I wish someone had told me. Laura left her contact information on the table and walked out. Behind her, she heard Jennifer's sobs, and her heart broke all over again, not just for herself, but for this woman whose life she'd just shattered. 3 days later, Laura's phone rang from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello, you ruined everything. It was Jennifer's voice, raw and broken. I confronted Derek. He admitted it. Everything. The wedding is canceled. My family is humiliated. My parents have known his parents for 25 years. Do you have any idea what you've done? I told you the truth, Laura said softly. That's all. The truth. Jennifer laughed bitterly. The truth is that you slept with an engaged man and got pregnant. The truth is that you destroyed my life. He destroyed both our lives. Laura, I'm not your enemy, Genevieve. Derek is. Stay away from me. Stay away from my family, and stay away from Derek. Jennifer hung up. Laura sat in silence, holding her phone. She'd done what she thought was right, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like everyone had lost. Except Derek, apparently. According to Marissa, who'd done some digging through mutual acquaintances, Derek had immediately moved out of the apartment he shared with Jennifer and was staying with a friend in Green Hills. The wedding had been cancelled, deposits lost, invitations recalled. Jennifer's family was furious. Derek's family was in damage control mode. But Derek himself, he'd sent Laura a single text from a new number before she blocked that one too. I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life. Laura deleted the message and focused on the only thing that mattered now, the life growing inside her. Chapter 3. Breaking Point. December arrived with unseasonably cold weather, bringing an ice storm that shut down Nashville for 3 days. Laura watched from her apartment window as tree branches bent under the weight of frozen rain, power lines sagging dangerously low. The city ground to a halt, schools closed, roads became impassable, and the entire metropolitan area retreated indoors. Laura was now 3 months pregnant. Her morning sickness had intensified, leaving her weak and dehydrated. She'd lost weight instead of gaining it, her face gaunt and pale. At work, she'd started wearing looser clothes to hide her growing belly, not ready to face the questions and judgments that would inevitably come. Her relationship with her mother had deteriorated to brief, stilted phone calls every few days. Patricia's tone remained cold, her disappointment palpable even through the phone. Her father called separately sometimes, his voice gentle and worried, but he never contradicted his wife's stance. Michael, her brother, had been told everything by their mother and had sent Laura a supportive text that guy's a piece of shit. You're better off without him. Call if you need anything, but he was 6 hours away in Atlanta, building his own life. The only constant support came from Marissa, who'd appointed herself Laura's unofficial guardian. She brought Laura ginger tea for the nausea, crackers and soup when she couldn't keep anything else down, and most importantly, a non-judgmental ear whenever Laura needed to talk. You need to see a lawyer, Marissa said one evening, sitting in Laura's apartment while sleet pelted the windows. Derek has financial responsibility for this child. You need to establish paternity and get a child support order. Laura wrapped her hands around a mug of chamomile tea. I don't want anything from him. It's not about what you want. It's about what your baby needs. Medical bills, childcare, food, clothes, education. Do you have any idea how expensive it is to raise a child? I have savings, which will run out faster than you think. Marissa's voice was firm but kind. I've been a single mother. I know, you need to protect yourself and your child legally. That means establishing paternity, getting a custody agreement, and making sure Derek pays his share. Laura knew Marissa was right, but the thought of dealing with Derek, of seeing him again, made her feel sick. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. You're running out of time to make decisions. That night, alone in her apartment, Laura Googled family law attorneys in Nashville. The websites all said the same things: initial consultations, hourly rates, retainer fees, money she didn't really have to spare. Her insurance job paid decently, but not enough to cover legal fees and impending medical bills and everything else that came with single parenthood. She was still staring at her laptop when her phone rang. Unknown number. She'd stopped answering those after Jennifer's call, but something made her pick up this time. Laura Michelle, a woman's voice, professional and clipped. Yes. This is Rebecca Hartwell, Jennifer's mother. I'd like to meet with you. Laura's stomach dropped. Señora Hartwell, I don't think that's a good idea. Tomorrow, 10 Café Fontanella, on 21st. Be there. The line went dead. Laura barely slept that night. Rebecca Hartwell was a force in Nashville society and the boards of multiple charities. a regular fixture at country club events, connected to everyone who mattered in the city's upper echelons. What could she possibly want with Laura? The next morning, Laura dressed carefully in black slacks and a burgundy blouse that still fit. Though it was getting tighter around the middle, she arrived at the cafe early, ordering coffee she wouldn't drink and settling at a corner table. Rebecca Hartwell arrived exactly at 10, impeccably dressed in a camel coat and pearls, her silver hair styled in a sleek bob. She was in her early 60s, with sharp blue eyes and the kind of posture that came from years of country club tennis and junior league meetings. She ordered nothing, sitting across from Laura with the air of someone conducting a business transaction. "Thank you for coming," Rebecca said, though her tone suggested it wasn't really a request. "I'll be direct. You've created quite a mess, Miss Michelle." Laura felt her jaw tighten. "I didn't create anything. Derek did. Regardless, my daughter's life has been upended. Our family's reputation has been damaged. The Chamberlains, a family we've known for decades, are humiliated. And you're sitting here, pregnant with the cause of all this chaos. If you came here to make me feel guilty, I came here to make you an offer." Rebecca opened her Hermes handbag and pulled out a leather checkbook. "I'll pay you $50,000. In exchange, you'll sign a legal document agreeing to never contact Derek Chamberlain or anyone in my family again. You'll raise your child without involving him. You'll move out of Nashville, and you'll never speak publicly about any of this." Laura stared at the checkbook, her mind reeling. $50,000. More money than she'd ever seen in one place. Enough to cover medical bills, maternity leave, the first year of childcare. "You want to pay me to disappear?" she said slowly. "I want to pay you to do what's best for everyone involved. Derek made a terrible mistake. Jennifer is devastated. Your presence in this city is a constant reminder of that mistake. Take the money, start fresh somewhere else, and let everyone move on with their lives. And my child? Derek's child? They just grow up never knowing their father. Children adapt. Better a stable life with a dedicated mother than the chaos of forcing Derek into unwilling fatherhood." Rebecca's eyes were cold. "He doesn't want this baby, Miss Miche. He never wanted this situation. You can either accept reality and take the money, or you can fight a losing battle for scraps of child support while raising a child who'll always know they weren't wanted." The cruelty of the words hit Laura like ice water. "Get out. Excuse me. Get out of this cafe. Take your money and your condescension and get out." Laura stood, her hands shaking. "My child will know they were wanted by me. I don't need Derek's money, or his involvement, but I will not be paid off like some embarrassment to be swept under the rug. I did nothing wrong. I was lied to and betrayed, and I will not let you make me feel like the villain in this story." Rebecca stood as well, her face tight with anger. "You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting Derek. I won't compound it by trusting his enablers." Laura grabbed her coat. "If Derek wants to be involved in his child's life, he can reach out like an adult, but he doesn't get to erase us just because we're inconvenient." She walked out, leaving Rebecca Hartwell sitting alone at the table. Laura made it to her car before the shaking overtook her completely. She sat in the parking lot, taking deep breaths, trying to process what had just happened. $50,000. The offer was still echoing in her mind, tempting in its simplicity. But she knew if she took it, she'd lose more than just her connection to Derek. She'd lose herself. That afternoon, Laura called the first family law attorney on her list and scheduled a consultation. The lawyer, Carmen Rodriguez, was a 40-something woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Her office was in a modest building in East Nashville, far from the gleaming high-rises downtown where the city's top attorneys worked. Laura told her everything: Derek, Jennifer, the pregnancy, Rebecca's offer. Carmen listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When Laura finished, Carmen set down her pen and looked at her directly. "First, congratulations on not taking that payoff. It would have been legally meaningless. Any way Derek's parental rights can't be signed away by his ex-fiancée as a mother." She smiled slightly. "Second, you need to understand that establishing paternity and getting child support doesn't mean Derek gets equal custody. Tennessee courts prioritize the child's best interests, given that he's demonstrated no interest in being a father and actively tried to hide your existence. You'd likely get primary physical custody with him having visitation rights if he wants them, which, honestly, he probably won't. So what do? We file a petition to establish paternity. Once the baby's born, we can do a DNA test if Derek contests it, though given the circumstances, he probably won't. Then we'll get a child support order based on Tennessee guidelines. It's calculated on his income, and based on what you've told me about his job, you're looking at probably $800 to $1,000 a month. We'll also establish a custody arrangement. All of this can be done whether Derek cooperates or not. How much will this cost? I'm going to be honest with you, Laura. My retainer is $3,500, and this could cost anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 total, depending on how much Derek fights it. Carmen paused. But I do payment plans, and I think it's worth it to protect your child's rights. Laura felt tears prick her eyes. I can probably manage half the retainer now and the rest in 2 months. That works for me. Let's get started. By the time Laura left Carmen's office, it was getting dark. She drove through downtown Nashville, past the Christmas lights strung up on Broadway, past the honky-tonks filled with tourists, past the gleaming Batman building lit up against the night sky. This city had been her home for 10 years, and now it felt like a battlefield. When she got home, there was a voicemail from her mother. Laura, it's your mother? Your father and I have been talking. We think you should consider adoption. There are good Christian families who would raise that child right. You're not in a position to be a mother, no husband, no support system, and frankly, I don't think you've thought through what you're doing. Call me back. We need to discuss this seriously. Laura deleted the message and blocked her mother's number. She was done letting other people tell her what to do with her life. Chapter 4. The confrontation. January brought clearer skies and a cold that settled deep in Laura's bones. She was now 4 months pregnant, her belly finally starting to show in a way that couldn't be hidden by loose sweaters. At work, she'd had to tell her supervisor about the pregnancy, which led to a series of awkward meetings with HR about maternity leave and health insurance. Her colleagues had been polite but distant, and Laura could feel the whispers following her through the office hallways. Carmen had filed the paternity petition in late December. Derek had been served at his new apartment in Green Hills. According to Carmen, his initial response filed through a lawyer, his parents had clearly paid Forwas to contest paternity, demanding a DNA test. Laura had expected this, but it still stung. Even now, even with all the evidence, he was trying to deny responsibility. It's a stalling tactic, Carmen had explained. The DNA test won't happen until after the baby's born, but we can still proceed with establishing support and custody. The court will issue a temporary order based on the assumption of paternity, and then it'll be finalized after the test. Laura was sitting in Carmen's office on a Tuesday afternoon, reviewing the documents for the court hearing scheduled for next week, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She'd started answering again, since Carmen had told her Derek's lawyer might try to contact her directly. Hello, Laura, it's Derek. Her breath caught. It was the first time she'd heard his voice in almost 3 months. He sounded tired, strained. You're not supposed to contact me directly, she said. You have a lawyer. I know. We need to talk. Really, talk. Not through lawyers. There's nothing to talk about. Please. Just give me an hour. Meet me somewhere public. I need to explain. Explain what? Derek? How you lived a double life for 2 years. How you were engaged to someone else while telling me you loved me. How you tried to deny paternity of your own child. Laura's voice rose, despite her efforts to stay calm. I made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But I'm asking for a chance to make this right. Make it right? Laura laughed bitterly. There's no making this right. You destroyed everything. My trust, my dignity, Jennifer's life, my relationship with my family. I know I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. His voice cracked. Please, Laura. One conversation. Against her better judgment. That's all I'm asking. Against Carmen's likely advice. Laura agreed. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Centennial Park. By the Parthenon, 1 hour. She spent the rest of the day questioning the decision. What could Derek possibly say that would make any difference? What explanation could justify what he'd done? But part of her, the part that had loved him, that had imagined a future with him, needed closure. The next afternoon was unseasonably warm for January, one of those fall-spring days Tennessee sometimes offered in the middle of winter. Laura wore jeans, with an elastic waistband, and a blue maternity top she'd bought at Target, her first concession to her changing body. She arrived at the park early, walking the paths around the Parthenon, the full-scale replica of the Greek temple that had been built for Tennessee's Centennial Exposition in 1897. Derek was waiting on a bench facing the building. He looked different, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his jaw. He stood when he saw her, his expression a mixture of guilt and hope. "Thank you for coming," he said. Laura sat on the far end of the bench, leaving space between them. "Talk." He took a breath. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Jennifer and I got engaged our senior year of college. It felt like the right thing to do. Our families were close. We'd been together so long, everyone expected it. But then graduation came, and work started, and we fell into a routine. We became roommates more than lovers. It felt hollow. So you decided to cheat. I didn't plan it. I met you at that work conference, and you were so different from her, so independent and passionate about your job and your life. You made me feel alive again. And I told myself I was going to end things with Jennifer. I was going to tell her the truth and be with you, but you never did. Every time I tried, something stopped me. Her father would invite me to a business dinner, or my mother would talk about the wedding, or I'd remember all the deposits we'd put down, all the people who'd been invited. The longer it went on, the harder it became to untangle myself. I felt trapped. You felt trapped." Laura's voice was sharp. "How do you think I felt when I found out the man I loved was marrying someone else? How do you think Jennifer felt? I know I hurt you both. I'm not trying to make excuses. I just want you to understand that I never wanted to hurt anyone. I made bad choices, and then I kept making them because I was too much of a coward to face the consequences." Laura looked at him, this man she'd thought she knew, and realized she was looking at a stranger. "Do you even understand what you've done? I'm having your baby, Derek. A child who's going to grow up knowing their father chose to run away rather than face responsibility. My family won't speak to me. Jennifer's mother tried to pay me to leave town. And you're sitting here talking about being trapped, like you're the victim in all this. I'm not saying I'm the victim. Then what are you saying? Why are you here?" Derek was quiet for a long moment, staring at the Parthenon's columns. The wedding being called off was the best thing that could have happened. Jennifer and I weren't right for each other. We were going through the motions of what everyone expected. Now she's free to find someone who actually loves her the way she deserves. "How generous of you," Laura said dryly. "And you and I, maybe we could try again. Start over. Do it right this time." Laura felt like she'd been slapped. "Are you serious right now? Mean Italiano. No more lies, no more secrets. We could be a family, you, me, and the baby. I know I don't deserve another chance, but you're right, you don't." Laura stood, her hands shaking. "You think you can just apologize and we'll play house? You think I could ever trust you again after what you've done? You think I want my child to learn about relationships from someone who treats people like they're disposable? Laura, please. I don't want you in my life, Derek. I don't want your apologies, or your second chances. I want you to pay child support, and I want you to leave me alone. That's it. That's all you get. I'm their father? No. You're their biological parent. Being a father takes more than DNA. It takes showing up. It takes being honest. It takes putting your child's needs before your own comfort. You've demonstrated none of that." Derek's face hardened. "You can't keep my child from me, primera aberites, and you'll have the opportunity to exercise them if you choose to. But don't mistake legal rights for a relationship. If you want to be in this child's life, you're going to have to earn it. And given your track record, I'm not holding my breath." Laura walked away, leaving Derek sitting on the bench. She made it to her car before the tears came, not tears of sadness or loss, but tears of release. She'd finally said everything she needed to say. She'd looked him in the eye and told him the truth about who he was and what he'd done. It felt like freedom. That night, Laura lay in bed with her hand on her belly, feeling the first flutters of movement, tiny butterfly-like sensations that took her breath away. Tease was real. This tiny person growing inside her was real, and they were counting on her to be strong. "I've got you," she whispered into the darkness. "Whatever happens, I've got you." Next week, Laura attended her first court hearing. The Davidson County Family Court was an imposing building downtown, all concrete and glass, filled with people in various stages of family crises. Laura sat with Carmen in the hallway outside the courtroom, watching other cases being called. Derek arrived with his lawyer, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit named Gregory Vance. Derek didn't look at Laura, keeping his eyes on his phone as they waited. When their case was called, they entered the courtroom. The judge, a 60-something black woman named Judge Simmons, reviewed the petition with a practiced eye. "Mr. Chamberlain, you're contesting paternity?" she asked. Gregory Vance stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client believes a DNA test is necessary to establish your client had a 2-year relationship with Ms. Mitchell, during which time he was engaged to another woman," Judge Simmons interrupted, looking at Derek with clear disapproval. "And now he wants to contest paternity. Was there someone else Ms. Mitchell might have been involved with during this time?" "No, Your Honor," Carmen said. "Ms. Mitchell was in an exclusive relationship with Mr. Chamberlain. His contesting paternity is purely a delay tactic." "I'm inclined to agree," Judge Simmons said. "However, Mr. Chamberlain has the right to request a DNA test. That test will be conducted after the child's birth. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary order establishing child support based on presumed paternity. Mr. Vance, provide the court with your client's income documentation." The hearing continued, with arguments about support, amounts, and custody arrangements. In the end, Judge Simmons ordered Derek to pay $950 a month in child support starting after the baby's birth, pending DNA confirmation. She also granted Laura primary physical custody, with Derek having the right to reasonable visitation if he chose to exercise it. "Mr. Chamberlain," Judge Simmons said at the end, "you created this situation through your choices. I strongly encourage you to take responsibility for those choices and support this child, whether you intended to become a father or not. Children don't ask to be born, and they deserve better than to be treated as inconveniences." Derek's face was red as they left the courtroom. In the hallway, Gregory Vance pulled Carmen aside for a brief, tense conversation while Laura and Derek stood awkwardly 10 feet apart. Finally, Derek approached her. "This doesn't have to be a war," he said quietly. "You made it a war the moment you lied to me," Laura replied. "I'm just fighting for my child now. Our child, we'll see." Laura walked away, Carmen following. In the parking garage, Carmen turned to her. "You okay?" "Yeah," Laura said, and realized she meant it. "Yeah, I am." For the first time since this nightmare began, she felt like she had some control over her life. The legal process was underway. Derek's financial responsibility was established. Her child would be provided for, whether he wanted to be a father or not. Now she just had to figure out how to rebuild the rest of her life. Chapter 5. Rising from the Ashes. Spring arrived in Nashville with an explosion of color: dogwoods blooming white and pink, azaleas painting yards in shades of purple and fuchsia, the air thick with the scent of honeysuckle. Laura was now 7 months pregnant, her belly round and prominent, her body moving with the careful deliberateness of late pregnancy. She'd spent the past few months in a strange kind of limbo, working until her maternity leave started, preparing the small second bedroom in her apartment as a nursery, attending prenatal classes at Vanderbilt, where she was the only woman without a partner. The other expectant mothers would exchange sympathetic glances when Laura showed up alone, their husbands or boyfriends in tow, and Laura learned to hold her head high and ignore the pity. Her relationship with her parents remained fractured. She'd unblocked her mother's number in March, and they'd had a series of stilted conversations that circled around the pregnancy without really addressing it. Patricia still couldn't bring herself to express excitement about becoming a grandmother, and Robert followed his wife's lead. Though he'd started sending Laura small checks with notes that said things like "for the baby" or "in case you need anything." Michael had visited in February, driving up from Atlanta for a weekend. He'd taken Laura to Monell's for family-style, Southern cooking, and listened to everything she'd been through without judgment. "Mom's scared," he'd said finally. "Scared of what people will think. Scared of how this changes the family. Scared that you'll struggle. But she loves you. She just doesn't know how to show it right now." "I can't keep waiting for her to come around," Laura had replied. "I have to focus on my baby, on building a life for us." "I know, and you're doing great. You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for, including yourself." Laura had cried in her little brother's arms, grateful for his uncomplicated support. Marisa had become something close to a surrogate mother, attending doctor's appointments with Laura, helping her set up the nursery, throwing her a small baby shower at the office with cake and gifts and warm wishes from colleagues who'd softened toward her as her pregnancy progressed. The baby was a girl, Laura had learned at her anatomy scan, and she'd named her Sophia Grace Mitchell Sophia, meaning wisdom. Grace for the grace Laura hoped to show her daughter throughout life. Derek had maintained his distance. The DNA test was scheduled for after Sophia's birth, though everyone knew it was a formality. His child support payments had been established, and according to Carmen, Derek's lawyer had indicated he wouldn't be seeking visitation initially. "He's a coward," Carmen had said bluntly. "But honestly, Laura, you and Sophia are probably better off. A reluctant father causes more harm than an absent one." Laura was organizing Sophia's tiny clothes one Saturday afternoon in late April when her doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment she considered not answering. But something made her walk to the door and peer through the peephole. Her mother stood on the other side. Laura opened the door slowly. Patricia looked older somehow, her face lined with worry and something that might have been regret. She held a large gift bag covered in teddy bears. "Hi, Mom." "Laura." Patricia's voice was soft can, Ecomaine. They sat in Laura's small living room, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows and illuminating the dust motes floating in the air. Patricia looked around the apartment, the nursery visible through the open bedroom door, the maternity books stacked on the coffee table, the hospital bag already packed and waiting by the front door. "You're due soon," Patricia said. 6 weeks. Are you ready?" Laura put her hand on her belly, where Sophia was currently doing somersaults. "As ready as I can be." Patricia set the gift bag on the couch between them. "I brought some things. Receiving blankets, onesies, a few books. Things I saved from when you and Michael were babies." Laura felt her throat tighten. "Thank you. I also came to apologize." Patricia's eyes were wet. "I've been terrible to you. When you needed me most, I turned my back on you because I was worried about what people would think. What the church would say, how it would look. And that was wrong. So wrong." "Mom, let me finish. Please." Patricia took a shaky breath. "You didn't do anything wrong. You trusted someone who betrayed you. You're bringing a life into this world and choosing to raise her alone rather than take the easy way out. You're brave and strong, and I'm so proud of you. I should have said that months ago." Laura was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "I needed to hear that so badly. I know. I'm sorry it took me this long." Patricia moved the gift bag and pulled Laura into her arms. "I want to be here. For you and for my granddaughter, if you'll let me. Of course, I'll let you. I want you here." They held each other and cried, months of hurt and anger and fear, dissolving into something that felt like healing. Patricia stayed 4 hours, helping Laura finish organizing the nursery, looking through baby name books, even though Laura had already chosen Sophia's name, talking about what labor might be like, and what the first few weeks of motherhood would entail. "It's going to be hard," Patricia said honestly. "Harder than you can imagine. But you'll get through it, and you won't be alone. Your father and I will help. Michael will visit. You have people who love you." That night, after her mother left, Laura felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She wasn't completely alone anymore. Her family was coming back to her. 2 weeks later, Jennifer Hartwell called. Laura almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello, Laura. It's Jennifer. I know I said I never wanted to talk to you again, but I need to tell you something. Laura sat down on her couch, her heart racing. Okay. I'm seeing a therapist. Working through everything that happened, and she helped me realize that I was directing my anger at the wrong person. Derek lied to both of us. He used both of us, and while I still wish I'd never learned about you, I'm grateful that I did before I married him and wasted more years on a lie. Jennifer, I'm not calling to be friends. I just wanted to say that I don't blame you anymore. You were as much a victim of Derek's selfishness as I was, and I hope things work out for you and your baby. Thank you, Laura whispered. That means more than you know. Take care of yourself, Laura. Jennifer hung up. Laura sat in the quiet of her apartment, processing the conversation. Forgiveness, real, genuine forgiveness from someone she'd hurt, even unintentionally. It felt like another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. On May 15th, at 2:47 in the morning, Laura's water broke. She called Mauricio, who arrived 20 minutes later to drive her to Vanderbilt Medical Center. Her mother met them there, and together they coached Laura through 14 hours of labor. Sophia Grace Mitchell was born at 4:32 p.m., weighing 7 pounds, 2 ounces, with dark hair and her mother's gray eyes. When the nurses placed her on Laura's chest, skin to skin, Laura felt her entire world shift on its axis. Hi, baby girl, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I'm your mama. I've been waiting to meet you. Sophia blinked up at her, tiny and perfect and real, and Laura knew with absolute certainty that every moment of pain and humiliation and struggle had been worth it to get to this moment. Her mother cried as she held her granddaughter for the first time. Marissa took photos. Michael drove up from Atlanta that night, his eyes wet as he gently touched Sophia's tiny hand. Derek sent a text the next day. Heard you had the baby? Let me know when we can do the DNA test. Laura deleted it without responding. Carmen would handle the legal details. Laura had more important things to focus on, like learning how to breastfeed, and figuring out why Sophia wouldn't stop crying at 3 a.m. and marveling at the perfect curve of her daughter's ear. The DNA test happened when Sophia was 3 weeks old. It confirmed what everyone already knew: Derek was the biological father. His child support obligation became permanent. He still didn't ask to see her. Laura found she didn't care. She'd built a life without him, a small life, maybe, but one filled with purpose and love. She had her daughter. She had her family, slowly knitting itself back together. She had Marissa and Carmen and the growing network of single mothers she'd met at the prenatal classes who'd formed a kind of informal support group. One Sunday in June, Laura took Sophia to church with her parents. It was Father's Day, which felt bitterly ironic, but Patricia had asked her to come, and Laura had agreed. She sat in the pew with Sophia in her arms, feeling the stares and whispers of the congregation. After the service, as people filed out, Mrs. Henderson, the 70-year-old Sunday school teacher who'd known Laura since childhood, Laura braced herself for judgment. Instead, Mrs. Henderson smiled warmly and touched Sophia's cheek. "What a beautiful blessing," she said. "Congratulations, dear. Motherhood is a sacred calling, no matter how it comes about." Other congregation members approached after that, offering congratulations and support. Not everyone. Of course, there were still cold shoulders and disapproving looks, but enough kindness that Laura felt the last of her shame begin to dissolve. On her way out, Laura ran into Derek's mother, Elizabeth Chamberlain. The older woman looked stricken, staring at Sophia with an expression of longing and regret. "That's my granddaughter," Elizabeth said softly. "Yes," Laura replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Derek said he wasn't going to be involved. That's his choice." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "It's not mine. I know what he did was unforgivable. I know our families are complicated now, but if you'd ever consider letting me be part of her life, I'd like that very much." Laura looked at this woman, Derek's mother, Sophia's grandmother, and saw genuine remorse and hope in her eyes. "Let me think about it," she said finally. "This is all still very fresh." Of course. Elizabeth pulled a card from her purse. My number. Whenever you're ready, or if you need anything. Please. Laura took the card and walked out into the sunshine, Sophia sleeping peacefully in her car seat. The future was still uncertain. She'd be going back to work in a few weeks, juggling childcare and bills and all the challenges of single motherhood. But she felt ready for it in a way she hadn't before. That evening, after Sophia was asleep in her crib, Laura sat on her apartment balcony with a cup of tea and watched the sun set over Nashville. The sky turned gold and pink, the city's lights beginning to twinkle in the growing dusk. She thought about the woman she'd been 9 months ago, heartbroken, betrayed, terrified, alone. That woman had felt like her life was ending. But she'd been wrong. Her life hadn't ended. It had transformed. She'd discovered strength she didn't know she possessed. She'd learned that family wasn't just blood, but the people who showed up when it mattered. She'd found that dignity came from within, not from the approval of others. And most importantly, she'd learned that love, real, unconditional, transformative love, was worth every sacrifice. Laura looked at the baby monitor on the table beside her, Sophia's peaceful sleeping face visible in the soft glow of the nightlight. Her daughter. Her purpose. Her redemption. We're going to be okay, she whispered to the Nashville night. More than okay. We're going to thrive. And for the first time in a very long time, she believed it. Opening hook, 10120 words. She thought she knew him. 2 years of promises, whispered futures, and a love that felt unshakable. But the truth shattered everything in a single photograph: him in a tuxedo, another woman in white. 3 weeks, until I do. While he posed 4 engagement photos, she held a positive pregnancy test, her hands trembling with a secret he'd never planned for her to carry. Abandoned, betrayed, judged by everyone who should have held her close. But this isn't a story about a woman who broke. This is about a woman who burned everything down and rose from the ashes, fiercer and ready to fight for the life growing inside her. The life he never wanted her to have.